There are barns set up on the tarmac right next to where the planes come in. So once the horses arrive, they're going to be assigned to a certain barn, and then once they enter this barn, they're going to be quarantined there until they are cleared from quarantine. So the horses arrive, we go on the plane to make sure that the horses aren't in any sort of distress. Then we take them off the plane and assign them to the barn with their grooms. And we'll do an arrival exam once they get there. We'll draw bloods for a bunch of infectious diseases that we're looking for. And then we'll check for any sort of parasites or anything that makes them look clinically ill, snotty nose, diarrhea, anything like that. So once that's finished, the next day they're going to come back and they're going to get another complete physical exam. So that's the FEI exam. And they're going to get their temperature taken every 6 hours. So once we get our blood results back and the time limit is up for the quarantine, then they're going to be cleared from the quarantine and sent to the horse park. Anything that's coming into the Cincinnati airport is going to be in quarantine for 42 hours. So it doesn't matter, they're all in the same health status. So anything that comes in 42 hours, as long as we get all of our bloods back and we're happy, they leave. A lot of these horses are going to come off the planes tired, so we're just going to look for changes in those 42 hours. And then our blood work is also going to come back and tell us, are these horses clear of any infectious diseases? And the parasites that we're going to look for, especially ticks, we're going to make sure they don't have any of those things that they're going to bring into the U.S. All the blood tests that we draw, which are Coggins, During, glanders, they have to be negative for those things. And the other thing they have to do to clear quarantine is not show any signs of infectious disease. And then based on that, depending on if they don't clear quarantine, they didn't meet one of those two criteria. So based on which of those criteria they didn't meet will kind of depend on where they go from there. And then they will remain in quarantine, in isolation, until they meet all of the criteria. The horses are going to be in quarantine in Cincinnati, but if we have a problem and the horses get sick or they don't meet quarantine, depending on what criteria they don't meet quarantine, if the bloods are bad, whatever, they will stay in isolation in Cincinnati. If they're sick and they don't meet quarantine, depends on the USDA, but they'll come down to Lexington to one of the two clinics, either Haggard or Rood and Riddle. Each clinic is set up with their own quarantine facility. So once they arrive here, they are in a certain health status. So if they go to the quarantine facility here, they remain in that same health status. So they can go compete if they just have some shipping fever or something like that. But the hospitals are set up for these horses. Anything that looks suspicious, the hospitals are going to have their own quarantine facilities for those horses, so we can keep them isolated, but treat them at the same time.